So I often hear that science is just science. Let science do the talking. Stand on your merits. Politics has got no place in STEM. Those who made discoveries may have been racist, but it doesn't matter. We should still put them on a pedestal. I hear this all the time as I'm advocating for improved inclusion, active inclusion in science and STEM. So I'm asking the question here, is science political? Should science be political? Just to clarify, when I'm talking about politics, I'm talking about active inclusion work. That's the angle that I'm taking. Because I'm an advocate for making STEM subjects accessible to anyone who has the aptitude and the desire to study. I talk about this in a TEDx London talk, which I'll link below. This was done a couple of years ago, and I think I was still forming ideas at the time. But I do talk about, the ways that we do exclude people from academia more generally, and also how my science was impacted by being trans even before I came out. And I also talk about why I think we should remove those barriers, because science will achieve its maximum potential if we have the most people taking part. If everyone that has an aptitude, everyone that wants to take part in science, then we're more likely to find the people that will make those big discoveries, those big breakthroughs. If we exclude people because of who they are, then how do we know we're not pushing out the person that will make that discovery that changes the world? And it is possible. I fully believe that. So yeah, I believe that we should remove barriers and make science for all. Now, there is actually a paper that I read last night when I was preparing this, called Silence is Never Neutral, Neither is Science, which was written by the leadership of 500 women scientists. So I just read that last night, and I think that that's a really important paper. They explain some different things to what I'm going to talk about. They probably explain things better than I do. And also it's nice to see that other people are talking about this as well. Because especially in light of Black Lives Matter talks and the reaction that we're seeing to whether science institutions should or should not speak out, I think it's really, really important that we talk about this. So the first thing I just want to, I don't know, almost a flip on point, but if science shouldn't be political, how come whenever I talk about improving diversity, you start talking about why we actively shouldn't be diverse and we shouldn't bring politics into it? I hear people saying that these barriers you're talking about, they don't exist, they're made up, they don't exist. That's political in itself. The way you're arguing against me bringing politics into science is political. So, like I say, that's a flippant point, but I just wanted to start with an easy one. Because this is a complicated topic. I won't get it all right, and I've been back and forth, and I think I've recorded this about 6 or 7 times. It's a really nuanced discussion. So these are my thoughts, Next, science has been used to hold some groups down, to paint them in a different light, ensure that they're not able to just get on and do their thing, right? We've got a long history of women being kept out of science. It wasn't that long ago that we didn't actually allow women to study science. Oxford University only started handing out degrees to women 100 years ago, across the board. So we were actively excluding people from taking part in science. That was a political act, and it was carried out by our scientific and academic institutions. The choice was made. There was politics involved in keeping those people out. we hear all the time about how contributors who are women are left off papers about Nobel Prize awarded to males when there was a significant contribution from women in the group that didn't get mentioned. On the other side, I'm pretty darn sure that we hear about people who are added to papers simply because they were drinking buddies or something like that. And in fact, even who we choose to cite, there are some people that will actively ignore women or non-Western sounding names when they're writing, when they're using their citations, and yet they'll put on their friends or whatever. So even writing papers, even if the actual content of the work isn't political, you're making it political by who you choose to cite and who you choose to include on the paper. So those political decisions are being made, and I know they're being made. And we also see people actually publishing papers, sharing data, carrying experiments, using science to prove that black people, women, disabled people, neurodivergent people aren't as good at science as, white, non-disabled men, white, cisgendered, straight men even. This work is going on. There was a physicist who recently was given a huge platform to talk about why women weren't as good at physics as men because of science. And that was followed up with national press coverage. Just this weekend, there was this storm about a prominent chemist in a prominent chemistry journal who, was saying that the push for ethnic minorities is detrimental to science, and also that we should ignore researchers from certain countries because they lie. The stuff that they're writing, the results that they're publishing are fraudulent, and therefore that we're losing the integrity of science. Now, that was quite an old paper, but it shows that, people have taken their own personal political biases against certain races and put them in science. It's not anything new. And these people, when we read this data and we see these scientific discussions, we've got to think about how these experiments were run, how these conclusions were come to, because you've got to be really careful about how you put data. And that's why, hopefully you've gone, if you're reading something, it's from a reputable source, it's from a peer-reviewed source that has a good moral and scientific ethical background. That's the difference between someone writing an opinion piece in a newspaper or publishing a paper from their bedroom and reading it in a scientific journal. Like I say, the case above was from a well-known scientific journal. Things have changed down the years, hopefully. But I'd say you're more likely to have faith in the results if you get it from the right place. Because and things do change, So there was an example that I heard about in a talk recently. So LGBTI people are often said to be more likely to be prone to addiction, and I've heard this so much. But I was watching a talk recently, and someone was looking through these studies and showing that they're actually recruiting people in bars and clubs. They're recruiting people in places where addictions are already more prevalent. So in doing that, by choosing where you recruit people, you're manipulating the results. And when you do, what you're saying is that there's something that means that LGBTI plus people are more disposed to being addictive and therefore, somehow inferior. You're implicitly using science to make a point. And the way that you are choosing your data set is politically motivated. It isn't, free from bias. You can't say that, you were doing a growing experiment and the natural light had no impact on the growth of this plant if you then forget to actually mention that you did the whole experiment in a dark room, because the results are correct, but not in the context of the data that you're presenting. You've got to have the full picture. And it's the same with the example that I talked about above. You're cherry picking people to look at, so you're changing the way that data comes out. You're making implications about the and making sure that you get the result that you want. And eugenics science is still taking place. There's still people trying to prove that black people are evolutionary less intelligent than white people. We have people that want to prove that white people are superior intellectually. We've got professors who want to talk about why biological sex is so important, because women who are trans are more predisposed to be rapists or attack people or whatever. There's people, that want to use their data to put another group down. There's people who want to show that one group is less than another. And the right to do this is being defended. It's all being defended in the name of free speech, academic freedom. There's a journal for people where they can put in, non-PC papers, papers that talk about issues that other journals will reject, and you can do it anonymously. And this is supported. In fact, it's defended. If you, believe so strongly in your results, then, if they're so robust, then you can publish them in a reputable journal. You don't need another journal. And it's interesting, why are you fighting so hard to be able to do that research? From a scientific point of view, if you really just care about doing science, then honestly, given that you're facing, difficulties publishing your data, maybe getting grants, you're facing these barriers, why not just move on to another thing where you're more likely to be able to get research? You're pushing to do this research that puts another group down because you want to show that another group is inferior to you. That's what you want to do. And the truth of the matter is that you see certain people that have such a reputation, they've been around for so long that they can just, even though times have changed, they can continue, they still are shielded. They still are able to do what they want, even though things have changed. And we do see people focusing on anyone who speaks up, people talking about the flaws in in race science, the flaws in gender, sex science. And those people are speaking up, they're being harassed and shut down and basically pushed out of science, basically harassed until they stop talking. That's political. And look, just, generally, when we stay silent on topics that's important to our colleagues, it suggests that you don't support them, right? Your silence is a political statement. When you cry academic freedom to be able to, publish homophobic views on your social media, you can't pretend that when you go and teach physics, that doesn't have an impact. It does. You're putting people in a position where they feel uncomfortable by sharing your overtly political views. You can't remove that from the classroom. If we have people entering buildings that are named after, known slavers, if we have prizes named after people who we know were notoriously homophobic, who advocated for, sterilization of gay people, or euthanasia of people with disabilities. You can't remove who a person was from what they did in their scientific career. And by naming buildings after them, having our statues up, having prizes named after people, we're pushing people out of science. The choice to keep those names on things or those statues, that is pushing people out of science. So it is political. You can't just say, come in, you've just got to ignore that. Not enough. Even when we conveniently forget to talk about people of different backgrounds who made achievements, though admittedly, when you see all the barriers to keeping people out, then it's no surprise that most of the achievements that are made are by people who are, shall we say, in the majority. Heck, there's even stupid stuff, academia is definitely easier for people who've got money behind them. If I don't get a grant, I can't wait 12 months to get another one, because as soon as I miss a wage, I miss rent payment, right? And I should probably just move away from Oxford. It's not like I don't get a good wage, it's just that, the area is so expensive, but it's not that simple. And actually there's good reasons for me being here that I want to take advantage of the privilege of being here. But sometimes I wonder how sustainable it is. And I know that, certain of our buildings are just terrible environments for people with certain disabilities, certain neurodivergencies. We need to make sure that we can't completely remove these, but we need to do everything we can to make it better. It shouldn't be because that one person that needs the adjustment asks. It should be because we have something in place so that they know we want them, and that, we're able to put something in place for those people. And this stupid stuff as well, things that we do, I've had people I've had people talk over me. I've had people make opinions of me based on my tattoos, based on the way I talk, my northern accent, and I've been ignored because of those things. I've seen discrimination because of these stupid things. So the idea that there's no such thing as racism going on is just ludicrous. We've got people being pushed out for all sorts of reasons, and if people are making a point of belittling me in front of my scientific peers, which has happened, that's having an impact on my science, and that's a political choice by you based on your prejudices. Look, we can't ignore our history, we can't ignore our past, we can't ignore those who made discoveries, but we can put them in context. Do we need that statue on the street, or should it be in a museum where you can explain about it? Yes, those people made those scientific discoveries, absolutely they did. You can't pretend that they didn't. But do we still need to remind people of their name? Is it not just enough to acknowledge that they made that position, but then name our prizes and our funds and our scholarships and our buildings after people who weren't terrible people? It's not like there's a shortage of amazing scientists from the past. There might be less when it comes to certain groups because of how people are excluded from science, but there's still a lot of good people out there. And generally when we talk about this, we're not talking about small things, we're talking about big things. We're talking about people that, funded their science through slavery. So, yeah, we don't want to pretend that people didn't, contribute to our science. That's not what we're doing. We're just saying don't hold them on a pedestal, don't hold them sacred. The science, sure, it's important, but the person, the name, no, that can be left out. And if we continue to use those people's names, then that's political. So no, we can't remove the politics from science. It is intrinsically part of our subject area. Yeah. So that was a lot. Like I say, I probably got some stuff wrong, simplified stuff. I purposefully avoided naming specific names. I don't always want to give, awareness of people to other people when they would, jerks or whatever. I'd rather erase their name, just keep their findings, but like I say, I won't be 100% right and I won't be 100% wrong, but hopefully it makes you realise why science isn't apolitical, and that I think is completely and absolutely true. So yeah, there we go. Alright, so until I speak to you again, take care and see you soon. Bye bye.